Hey guys, it's Sarah with AmericanTrucks.com, and today we have a review and install of the Rough Country 2.5-inch leveling kit with lifted struts and premium N3 shocks, fitting your 04 to 08 F-150 four-wheel drive models. This kit will work for the F-150 owner who wants a leveling solution that includes complete strut and shock replacements. This kit lifts the front and the rear of your truck without losing all of the factory rake and includes some nice upgrades for your aging factory components. This kit provides 2.5 inches of lift in the front thanks to these lifted struts. It also has an inch of lift in the rear thanks to these lift blocks which measure in at exactly 1 inch. So the stock tire size we have on our truck is a 31. Depending on the year or model of your truck, you may have a different stock size, so keep that in mind. The manufacturer states that this kit can run up to a 33-inch tire comfortably. Now, tread does matter. If you're running a larger, more aggressive tread like a mud terrain that you see in this video, you may see some rubbing on the factory plastics. However, if you are running a more mild tread like what you see in an all-terrain, it should clear just fine. So the recommended size is a 33, as I said before. Because we have 35s, we threw them on so you can see how they look and fit. Although they do fit sitting on our flat shop floor, they will rub during normal driving, going over bumps, or turning. This kit includes 2 lifted complete strut assemblies for the front, 2 N3 shocks for the rear that feature similar to factory ride quality. It also includes 2 rear lift blocks as well as longer U-bolts, so you get that level appearance to your truck with all upgraded components. So as far as price goes, this kit comes in at around $225. And this is a full shock and strut replacement, which is a nice upgrade for the money. So you still get a more level truck and more room for wheels and tires. And as far as the install goes, I'm giving this one a 3 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter. It does feature a direct bolt-up install with no modification required and can be done within 3 hours. So with that said, let's check out our install. For this install, you will need an impact gun or a ratchet and hand tools will work just fine. 30, 24, 22, 21, 18, 13, and 15 millimeter sockets. You may also want a swivel extension. You'll need a vacuum tool, and a caliper hanger or a bungee cord will work just fine, a hammer or a rubber mallet, a flathead screwdriver or a pop clip removal tool, 14, 15, 18, and 27 millimeter wrenches, and you will need a pry bar. All right, so the first step in our install, we're gonna unplug our ABS sensor. We're also gonna disconnect the vacuum line from the back of the knuckle. Remove the sensor from behind your wheel well liner. The plug should be right here. What you're gonna do is press down on the connector and remove it. Grab a pop clip removal tool and remove the pop clip that holds this line. Disconnect the vacuum line from your brake line and then pull it off of the spot on the back of your knuckle. Next up, we're gonna remove the nut on the outer tie rod, grab a 21 millimeter socket, and get it off. Next up, we're gonna remove the nut that's holding on the knuckle to the upper control arm. Grab a 21 millimeter socket, and you will wanna swivel here. Go ahead and get it removed. We are gonna thread this back on though until we release this ball joint. All right, so it's not likely that this ball joint will release on its own. If that is the case, you're gonna wanna grab a hammer and hit the top of the knuckle here to shock it loose. All right, so we do have to disconnect the sway bar, and I think the easiest way to do this is to remove the nut on the underside of the end link. Now you only have to remove one side of the end link to be able to remove this. You should take off both sides of your sway bar just to make your job a little easier. Go ahead and grab your 18 millimeter socket and remove it. Next up, we're gonna remove the 2 18 millimeter bolts holding on our brake caliper. This will relieve the brake line and also make it so we can remove the knuckle. Go ahead and grab an 18 millimeter socket and remove both of these bolts. Now you can pull your caliper off of your truck. And hang it off to the side. If you don't have a caliper hanger tool, you can use a bungee cord or anything that secures the caliper and doesn't have any tension for the brake line. Next up, we're gonna remove the nut that holds on the knuckle to the lower control arm. We're gonna grab a 24mm socket and remove this nut. We are gonna thread it back on because we still have to release this ball joint. We're gonna repeat the process we used up top, and we're gonna hit this part of the knuckle to release the ball joint. Next up, we're gonna remove the rotor itself. Now, we recently had the brakes apart on this truck, so the rotor should come straight off. If yours does not, you can tap around it and on the backside, but with a rubber mallet. Next up, we're gonna remove the dust cover that blocks the axle nut so that we can remove the nut itself. So you're gonna wanna hit this with a little PB blaster, depending on how rusty it is, and then get behind it and pry it off with a flathead. Next up, we're gonna remove the axle nut with a 13mm socket. Now, if the ball joint in your outer tie rod does not release from the knuckle, go ahead and grab your hammer and release it the same way you release the other two ball joints. Next up, we need to pull vacuum to be able to release the four-wheel drive so we don't damage it. Grab a line and slide it over the larger port that your vacuum line used to be attached to. Now we're gonna use our vacuum tool to pull 24 pounds of vacuum. This releases the four-wheel drive actuator because it's engaged unless it sees the 24 pounds and allows us to slide the axle out of the back of your knuckle without damaging your four-wheel drive. We're setting our vacuum tool to the side so we can start to disconnect the knuckle. Set your vacuum tool down, make sure it's still pulling pressure and you don't bump it to release the pressure. We're gonna now start to disconnect the knuckle. Go ahead and pull down on your upper control arm and remove this nut. Slowly release your upper control arm. If it doesn't come all the way out, carefully pry it the rest of the way. And actually, our axle has already released out of the back of the knuckle, which is good. Now we can carefully remove the nut on the bottom of your knuckle and remove the knuckle off the truck. Now we do have to maneuver around our axle a bit here. I'm lifting it up so you guys can see the bolt that we're going for. There's a 30mm nut on this side and a 27mm bolt on the other side. This holds on the bottom of our strut. I'm gonna set the axle down here for a second. Grab my 27mm wrench for the other side. And my 30mm socket for this side, and remove the nut. Now, depending on how much tension, this should wiggle its way out. Next up, we're gonna remove the three 15mm nuts on the top of our strut. What you're gonna do is grab a 15mm ratcheting wrench, just because we don't have a ton of space up there. You can use a small socket if you'd like, and remove these. We're gonna leave one or two at the front just loosely installed to keep the strut from falling all the way out. With all of the nuts loose or removed, you can lift up a little bit on your strut to get the last one off. And remove it off the truck. All right, so now that we have the factory strut uninstalled from our truck, we can check it out side by side with our new strut here. And as you can see, it is a nice upgrade over the worn out factory strut. It's still gonna get you the lift you're looking for in the front end without having to add one of those spacer kits on your factory strut. So you will get a nicer functioning unit that's a lot easier of an install. So with that said, let's finish up that install. Now we can get our strut installed. Line up the studs at the top of your strut tower. And also line it up with the lower control arm as well. Press it up to expose the studs and install the hardware that came with the strut. And don't forget about the stud all the way in the back. This one might be a little hard to see. Thread the nut on there as well. With all your nuts in place, grab a 15mm wrench. We're using a ratcheting wrench because there's not a ton of room up top here, and tighten it down. Now between prying a bit on the strut itself and prying on the lower control arm, line it up. And slide the bolt through. Install your nut. Grab your 27mm wrench and 30mm socket and tighten it down. With vacuum still pulled on your knuckle, line it up to both the axle and the lower control arm. Slide your nut over the bottom of the lower ball joint. And go ahead and turn this nut over your lower ball joint to get a couple of threads in place to hold the knuckle in place. Grab your 24mm socket and tighten down the nut on your lower ball joint. Double check that you're still pulling the 24 pounds of vacuum on the back of your knuckle. Slide your axle through the knuckle and thread the nut on the end of it. Grab your 13mm socket and tighten it down. Now you can release your vacuum and remove the line off the back of the knuckle. Line up the knuckle to your upper ball joint. Grab a pry bar and pry down on the upper control arm while you line it up. Once it's in place and you can see some threads, thread on the factory nut on the bottom of the ball joint. I'm going to tilt the knuckle a little to be able to get some more room for our impact gun. Grab your 21mm socket and a swivel extension. You're also going to want to pry down on the upper control arm, right where the ball joint is, to prevent it from moving. While prying down on your upper ball joint, grab your 21mm socket with a swivel extension and tighten down the nut for your upper ball joint. While jacking up on the lower control arm, line up your outer tie rod and install the factory nut. While supporting the ball joint with a pry bar, go ahead and grab your 21mm socket and tighten it down. At this point, grab your rotor, line it up over the studs on your wheel, and slide it into place. What we're going to do is throw a lug nut on there just to ensure it stays in place while we finish installing the caliper. Thread on the nut on the bottom of your sway bar end link. Grab an 18mm socket and tighten it down. Grab your caliper off the hanger. Line it up over top of the rotor and slide it into place. Once you line it up with the holes in the back of your knuckle, grab your factory hardware and thread it in. Just going to turn the knuckle a little bit to give us some more room for our gun. Grab your 18mm socket and tighten it down. Make sure you reconnect the vacuum line. Reconnect the Christmas tree clip that holds on your ABS line. And connect it to the factory connector. Reinstall your dust shield. Press it into place and you can lightly tap it in with a rubber mallet. All right, so once you're done with the front, repeat that step on the other side. And once both sides of the front are complete, we're gonna move on to the rear. The first thing we're gonna do is to remove the bolt that holds on the lower part of our shock. With an 18mm wrench and a 15mm socket, remove the bolt. Repeat that with the upper bolt with an 18mm wrench and a 15mm socket. And remove your shock. Next up, we're going to remove the 4 21mm nuts that hold your U-bolts to your axle. All right, now that we have our factory components uninstalled from our truck, we can check them out side by side with our new components here. As you can see, Rough Country has included one of their premium shocks that's going to deliver that factory feel and ride quality while being a nice upgrade over your worn out stock shock. In addition, they've also included new hardware, new longer U-bolts to replace the worn out factory ones, which a lot of times won't come off the truck in one piece. So with that said, let's finish up our install. At this point, we're going to drop our axle down so we can slide the spacer in between the current spacer and your spring. Once you've dropped it down far enough, with the openings up top, slide it on top of your factory spacer and line up the holes. Now you can begin to raise your axle. Now if this doesn't line up perfectly, you can do each side simultaneously because it is a straight axle vehicle. That might help with aligning this spacer. As you raise your axle, make sure that it's still in line and it slides into place. Now you can install the U-bolts into the factory brackets. Install the included hardware, the washer, and the lock nut. Repeat that with the other U-bolt. Make sure the U-bolts are seated in top of the bracket on top of your leaves. All right, now you can tighten down these nuts with a 22mm socket. Make sure you do so evenly across the U-bolt and also across the axle. At this point, we can install our shock. We are installing it with the body down. Rough Country confirmed this is the proper way to install, although the directions say otherwise. So go ahead and get the top portion installed with the factory hardware. Grab your 15mm socket and 18mm wrench and tighten this down. Compress your shock and line it up with the mount, and install the factory hardware. If you need to, you can tap it into place. Grab your 15mm socket and 18mm wrench and tighten it down. All right, now that this side is complete, repeat those steps on the other side. And as I said before, it may be easier because of the straight axle to do the sides simultaneously. Once you're all finished, make sure it's torqued to spec, and you may want to get a professional alignment afterwards. But that is going to do it for the review and install of this kit. And remember, for all things F-150, keep it at AmericanTrucks.com.